Good evening and welcome to the Top 25 Rundown presented by the Sportscast. Today is May 3rd, 2023. If you haven't yet, please subscribe on all your channels YouTube, Twitter, Twitch.tv, and Apple Podcasts. If you are on Apple Podcasts, please leave a rating and review. It'll help us out tremendously. You can listen to us on your smart speaker, play Sportscast. You can also visit us on the sportscast.net. Also follow us on Twitter at the Sportscast1 and check out our app, the Sportscast, in the iOS App Store. Welcome to the Top 25 Rundown. I am joined by Bob Alvis, high school sports commentator, public address announcer, host of Sports Buffet, and multiple other jobs and activities. How are you doing tonight, Bob?
Man, it's getting crunch time. It's May the 3rd as we record this, but it feels like November.
Yeah,
Very cold in Central Virginia.
it was very cold up in Northern Virginia last night, so
Mhm.
I'm thinking it's probably be just as cold tonight. I will only get a few hours of sleep, but that's okay. But we survived the NFL draft, which was great, and well, unfortunately, my picks didn't go as well as I thought they would. It did start out with C.J. Stroud as the number one pick, and then turned out to be from Toledo, a gentleman. Let's see, by the name of Deshaun Johnson of Toledo. He was selected by the Rams. Turns out that number 8 Washington is the only season in the AP top 25 team with 0 players selected in the draft. Our buddy from the show, Chris Caravello, he's not going to be very happy to hear that, but we're just going to have to see what happens with that. And that just means that they're probably going to have a good year for the players who did stay. So we'll keep our fingers crossed. I did see that Alabama and Georgia each had 10 players drafted in this, and they joined a exclusive 2017 club of teams with at least 10 draft picks in a single NFL draft during the 7 round era. But when you look at all the conferences that were represented, the SEC had 62 players, the Big Ten had 54, the ACC had 32, the Big 12 had 30, the Pac 12 had 27, the AAC had 10, the MAC had 8, Conference USA Independent, which is Notre Dame, BYU, and Liberty, each there were 7 players there. Mountain West had 5. The Sun Belt had 5. The MVFC had 2. And then the ASUN, the Big Sky, the CA, the GUAC, the Ivy League, the NEC, the OVC, the SEC, the SWAC, and the WAC each had 1 player selected in the draft. So even though you did see the Power Five conferences have a fair amount of people drafted, you still had a little bit of parity, I'd like to think.
Yeah, I mean, and the big thing about drafts is it's great and all the fans love it, but the real thing you want to see what impact was made is what do those guys do in the future years? I mean, anybody can get drafted, but staying on a team and making the impact to me is what we really need to look at.
That is true. That's why maybe another time we can definitely go a little more in depth on the draft. But I figure right now, at least we made sure that we talked about each conference that was represented. And I mean, that way you would know about the different players. Because it's all started and it ended with those 2 players. There are a lot in between, and there's going to be a lot of introspection over the next few months, depending on how things go, not only in mini camp, training camp, and how the season goes. So we're just going to have to wait and see for that. It was definitely an entertaining draft, and the only question is what's going to happen next with it.
Yeah, I think it's been very interesting for the draft as they've been kind of starting to move it every year and not just have it at Radio City Music Hall
Mm-hmm.
in New York where they used to have it. So I think the draft has kind of become a party atmosphere, so to speak. And I think if the NFL looks at the success rate of that, I mean, the NFL is covered more than any other sport anyway. So their draft,
Mhm.
whether it be a real draft, fantasy football draft, or whatever, is going to get a lot of eyes on it. So I think for that, Roger Goodell and these guys are getting what they want. And it's, let's be honest. I mean, this is a top 25 rundown, but a lot of
Mhm.
people are going to say, what's it going to do in the pros? And unfortunately, when you look at it that way, you're missing some really good college athletics.
And it's a sad truth, but means that you'll definitely see how it goes for everybody who is drafted. And I mean, it's gonna be fingers crossed no matter what, because you're gonna want to try to see, or you're basically be playing devil's advocate because you're gonna predict who's gonna do well, and then later on you may find out that unfortunately that is not what's gonna happen.
Right.
So it's definitely a needle in a haystack, but I'm looking forward to seeing that and just watching how the draft did go because it there were a few picks that a lot of people were surprised about, including real quick Will Levis dropping to the second round, and then Detroit Lions drafting Jahmyr Gibbs, the Eagles being lucky enough to get Jalen Carter. Those are just some of the ones right off the top of my head that were pretty eye-opening a little bit. Then you had C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson going 2 and 3.
Yeah, and you talked about Will Levis, and I think what the NFL tries to do sometimes is you want to avoid that guy sitting in the, I guess it used to be the green room. Now I don't know where they
Mm-hmm.
sit, but you don't want to see somebody just get overlooked. It took Will Levis to round 2, and guess who wasn't there when he got picked? Will Levis. So I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's a very interesting thing to do in terms of inviting people, and when people don't get picked where they think they should be picked, they look bored. But hey, I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, if Will Levis makes it, Will Levis is going to make his money. So I don't know that I'm feeling sorry for Will Levis because he was drafted in the second round. But I mean, he's gonna make his dough, and it's another place, another time. But a lot of these quarterbacks going early, and you've got to wonder if it was a normal draft, would they go early? Because everybody, I think, is now on the copycat league, and we got to find our franchise quarterback. And to
Mm-hmm.
be honest with you, I don't know how many of those guys that got drafted are franchise quarterbacks, but that's another tale for another time.
Exactly. We will hit that, although I did want to mention since you were bringing up about quarterbacks, Stetson Bennett didn't get drafted till the 7th round.
Right.
So we're gonna see how that goes because he was drafted by the Rams, so it is two Georgia Bulldogs together, but it's more just seeing how that's gonna play out along with everything else. But I'd say it definitely was an eye-opening draft, and depending on how the players come out, it's going to be interesting within the next, I'd say, 2 or 3 years just to see. And then we'll be getting ready for next year's draft before we know it, too.
Yeah, I guess we might as well start previewing that like next week. Tongue in
Yeah,
cheek. Tongue in cheek.
probably within the next few weeks. But one thing I did want to talk about is I saw that women's lacrosse this last weekend they had some of the championships before they do their tournament. And I saw that North UNC Tar Heels, they were the 4-time defending ACC champions. They were upset by Boston College. They won their first ACC championship in school history. So congratulations to them.
Yeah, I mean, you got to give a lot of credit to BC. As of this recording, they were ranked number 4. So we'll see what happens going forward with Boston College. But you've got 3 teams in the top 4 of the top 25 that are from the ACC.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of that, let's do a quick rundown for you. You got Northwestern number 1, 15-1, Syracuse number 2, 16-2, and UNC number 3 at 14-4. ACC champion Boston College number 4 at 16-3. Denver is perfect on the year, 17-0. James Madison is 16-1 at number 6. Maryland's number 7 at 13-5. Florida's number 8 at 14-3. Loyola Maryland's number 9 at 15-2. Stony Brook's number 10 at 12-3. Notre Dame's number 11 at 13-5. Virginia's number 12 at 11-6. Michigan's number 13 at 11-6. Marquette's number 14 at 15-2. Johns Hopkins is number 15 at 8-8. UConn's number 16 at 11-5. Army West Point's number 17 at 14-2. UMass is number 18 at 15-1. Drexel's number 19 at 12-4. Penn's number 20 at 11-4. Albany is 10-6. Rutgers is number 22 at 8-8. Field's number 23 at 12-4. Navy's number 24 at 13-5. And South USC is number 25. There's not a whole lot of parity, but you do see a few teams that are popping up there, Bob, that with the tournament about to be picked. I'm curious to see some of the different rankings and just how it's going to end up, but I think that sure we are going to have some of the blue bloods, at least in terms of lacrosse.
Yeah.
So the main teams, but I'm more curious to see which team's going to possibly be like the Cinderella in lacrosse.
Well, and I'm looking at the standings right now too, and one thing I look at is what are people's records on the road or at a neutral site game, and you've got to look at. I think Denver really sticks out to me. They're ranked number 5th. They're unblemished on the year, so obviously they're undefeated on the road, 9-0 on the road. Then you even go farther down, and Loyola Maryland is ranked 9th, 7-1 on the road. Even farther down, Marquette 8-0 on the road this year. So I think a lot of people are going to look at that and say, well, wow, those teams have good road records, but who are they playing? I don't know about you, Alan, but I subscribe to the fact of winning is a great teacher. And if you're winning, I don't care if you're beating the 3rd grade elementary school or the 12th grade school. Obviously you want to beat the best you want to play the best competition possible. But if you're beating teams, it's kind of like when we talked about the NFL draft earlier with Stetson Bennett. He goes into the very later rounds, but he's a winner. And I don't think you can substitute winning, and especially when you win away from the friendly confines. And I mean, Marquette is that one that really stands out to me. 8-0, 15-2 overall, but they're 8-0 on the road. And I think that's outstanding.
I agree, and I'm curious about that, although let's jump over to the men real quick. And as you're talking about that, looking at some of the road records for some of the men, you're seeing that a lot of them, they're not perfect, but a lot of them are having better road records than, their home records, you're seeing a lot of teams are perfect on the home, but on the road, you're seeing they're still doing pretty good. For one right now, they're 12-2, UVA number 2 at 11-3. Notre Dame number 3 at 9-2. Johns Hopkins number 4 at 11-4. Penn State's number 5 at 9-3. Maryland's number 6 at 9-4. Cornell's number 7 at 11-2. Georgetown's number 8 at 10-3. Yale's number 9 at 8-4. Penn's number 10 at 7-5. Denver's number 11 at 9-4. Villanova's number 12 at 10. Boston is 10-3. UNC is 14 at 7-6. Rutgers is number 15 at 8-6. Vermont's number 16 at 9-4. Princeton's number 17 at 6-6. Utah's number 18 at 10-4. West 10-3, no 19. Bryant's number 20 at 10-4. Syracuse number 21 at 8-7. Michigan's number 22 at 7-6. St. Joseph's is number 23 at 10-4. Lehigh's number 24 at 9-4. Jacksonville was at the top 25 at 10-3.
Well, I don't know about you, but the one that sticks out to me is number 15, Rutgers. They're 8-6 on the season, but only 1-5 on the road.
Yeah, I did notice that as well. I'm definitely gonna be curious to see how they do on the year, and even North Carolina having a 2-3 record. I'm wondering how that's gonna affect them come tournament time.
Yeah, I mean, you never know because I mean, it's funny because I think there are some people that literally do not like to play on the road, and I think there are some people, and one of my buddies joked with me about it because when I was interviewing a high school coach, I said,
Mhm.
"Do you like the fact that you're going to get on the bus? Granted, it's a 2 hour trip." And he joked with me and said, "Yeah, everybody likes a 2 hour trip." Well, some people get, I don't want to say freaked out, but they'd rather not have to do the home things that you have to do, and it's better
Mhm.
when they get on the road. Now that question I think is stupid because yeah, who wants to take a 2 hour trip on a cheese wagon school bus? Granted, the college teams are not riding a school bus, but at the same time, I think you have to have some comfortability. I don't know if I said that right, but I think everybody speaks Bob at this point to understand what I meant.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it's a case of where you've got to be comfortable playing away from home. Maybe not winning all the games, but you've got to be comfortable playing away from the friendly confines.
That is true. Although I see number 11 Denver, their record on the road is 4-4. So that's gonna be another team I'm gonna keep my eye on as we're watching the tournaments come out and just how they set it up. So,
And
but
I mean, the true hardcore diehards are really going to pick apart who have they played, how have they played, when maybe they've had a man up, how have they played when they've had a man down. I mean, there are a ton of
Mhm.
reasons that you've got to go with, but yeah. And I mean, Denver, it makes sense because when you look at their conference in lacrosse, they play in the Big East. I know when I think Eastern Conference schools, I think Denver's the first one that comes to mind.
Yeah, well, I mean, we talked about it a few weeks ago. It's the beauty of different sports. You'll see different teams come out and show up and show out, which
Right.
is another great thing. I mean, like we talked about, Quinnipiac beat Minnesota to win its first national title. How many times do we hear Quinnipiac named in a lot of sports?
Not many.
Exactly. So for us to be able to talk about somebody who wins not only their first title, but not one of the technical blue bloods, but still able to do really well, that's a win for everybody because it means that we get to learn more about different schools.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's going to be very, very interesting when we get into the tournaments because, with those tournaments, it's one and done, and it's going to be super duper interesting to see how some teams play because, I mean, it's like you said, most people have never heard of Denver. I've actually done a little bit more due diligence here and pulled up their
Mhm.
record. Denver lost the game in February at Air Force by 2 goals, at Duke in overtime, but then they went on the road to North Carolina and won. They went on the road at Yale and lost by 2. They played Ohio State. They played at Georgetown. Georgetown may be their worst loss, 13-6. But Denver's beating schools that are ranked highly up there, and I think for Denver, it's just a comfort thing. You've got the tournament coming up tomorrow where they play Villanova in the
Mhm.
semis, then they'll play in the finals. And this is a good time too. If you don't check out your networks that maybe don't get as much play, like your CBS Sports or your ESPN News or whatever, now is really a good time to hit those networks up because that's who's going to be showing a lot of these lacrosse tournaments in college.
Absolutely. And I mean, lacrosse tournaments, they are definitely something to watch because of just how they don't always get the credit like say basketball gets, but those games can be some of the most competitive you're gonna watch in the year.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not a big super duper lacrosse knowledgeable person, but you mentioned I do PA, and I've been doing some PA a lot for high school lacrosse. And some of the guys that have been up there with me, the parents who are running the scoreboards or whatnot, and one of them is actually an assistant, a volunteer assistant, Division III Lynchburg College, who's ranked number 1 in their region. they say if you see a lacrosse game at like a UVA or whatever, it's such a different level than what you see in local high school lacrosse. So I would encourage people, if you've seen lacrosse at a high school level or your kid plays youth lacrosse or whatever, really watch an NCAA game just to observe the speed and the talent level, because
I don't know about you, Alan, but I don't think I could pick up a lacrosse stick and be successful, because there's a lot of coordination from swinging that stick to throw the ball and then catching the ball, and your partner's got to catch the ball. So I think I would fail miserably at lacrosse.
I did play lacrosse a little bit in high school, like when we had like for class, and I learned how to be the goalie, would not recommend it. And trying to catch that ball, that was something that I did it a few times. Once I put down the stick, I really had not picked it back up, but I have respect for players that are able, and people who are able to not only pick up the stick and do well, but also succeed in different levels.
How much padding did you have as a goalie?
None.
Okay. How many bumps and bruises did you have when you went home?
A few. It was not. It
Exactly.
was not a fun night. It was not a fun night when I went to bed. I'll put it like
The
that.
the thing about it too that I would say to, somebody who is either just a watching TV, watching sports on TV, or maybe they go out and run or ride a bike or maybe play some pickup sports. One of the most hurtful things for me, and I was not a good athlete at all, but when I played recreational basketball, if you hit your knee on a hard basketball court,
Mm,
it hurts.
mm.
If you hit somebody with a lacrosse ball, and you've got to think that ball is being thrown out of the net, you're going to get hit. You're going to get checked. You don't have the pads on that a football player has or anything like that. And I'm not saying that football players are wimps, not by any stretch of the imagination. But lacrosse, you're getting hit a lot.
That is true. And like we said, the views and opinions are expressed are our own opinions,
Yeah.
not the broadcast. It's me and just because yeah, when I was the goalie, I did have the unfortunate pleasure of somebody using a power shot in my thigh, stopping it.
and we
So
always
that
say you can find me on the internet. So I mean, I'm not going to run for my opinion, but I'm definitely not. If you want to say, hey, come step in the lacrosse goal and see how it feels, I'll pass. I'll pass because I have a ton of respect for people who can do what I can't do, and they can do it at a extremely high level. And lacrosse is one of those sports to where I think the guys and the gals out there, they are playing at such a high level. It is, and so the other thing I've noticed too, Alan, it's a lot of running, a lot of running.
That is true. And I mean, to talk about lacrosse before, I remember when UVA was going to the NCAA tournament, I believe. It was either that or the finals of the ACC tournament. Their goalie, Adam Gittleman, had gotten a penalty, so they had to have a backup goalie come in. And the backup goalie, I guess, hadn't played much in the year. He was able to make two huge saves to where Gittleman got out of the penalty box, and they were able to win. And that's something that I've always been able to I've never forgotten. That happened, I want to say, over 10 years ago. But just watching how that was one of the best lacrosse games I've been able to watch. And then that was a year or two, I want to say, before Matt Ward, who was their great forward for Virginia lacrosse, where he basically won every offensive category award that was given out by the NCAA that year. I believe his name's Matt Ward. So that's
So
just what.
interesting stat, real quick. Didn't mean to interrupt. Notre Dame and Cornell are both in the top 10 in scoring offense and the top 10 in scoring defense. So if you wanna see some teams that are good on both sides of the ball, so to speak, you might want to check out the Fighting Irish and the Big Red.
Okay. That's definitely true. And the other thing that I've noticed when you look at the different um conferences and standings is that you'll see different teams are part of it. Like Johns Hopkins plays in the Big Ten for lacrosse.
Yep.
Which I thought was something that was pretty interesting because normally when you look at the Big Ten, you wouldn't think that a school like Johns Hopkins would be there, but for lacrosse they are because that's I want to say it probably gives them a lot more exposure for the games, which definitely helps.
I think when you think of Johns Hopkins, you think of two things: really good medical and lacrosse. And
Yep.
obviously, you really want to be good at the medical stuff,
Oh
but
yeah.
the lacrosse stuff too. You got to give Johns Hopkins credit because, to my knowledge, I don't know that they play any other sports on an NCAA level. Not many sports at all. I know it's not like, they're not trotting out there with basketball and football, from what people have told me. So
Johns Hopkins is going to be another team that's very interesting to watch. And sometimes if you go
Mhm.
to NCAA sites or whatnot, and you will look at some individual or team statistics, if you don't see a team on there, you're like, oh, they must stink. Well, Johns Hopkins doesn't have anybody in the top 10 in goals per game or assists per game. But
Mhm.
you and I both know, Alan, that they're going to be a team that you don't want to see.
Without question. Without question. Well, Bob, another sport that's coming up for super regionals is college softball. And when I was taking a look at the stats, we still have Oklahoma at number one with a record of 45-1, which that blows my mind that they've only lost one game the whole year. And they're definitely gonna be the team to beat when it comes for the women's college World Series. But we got UCLA number 2 at 47-4. Florida State's number 3 with a record of 43-8. Tennessee's number 4 with 39-6. Texas is number 5 with 39-9-1. Oklahoma State's number 6 at 41-9. Stanford's number 7, 38-10. Clemson's number 8, 45-8. Washington's number 9 with a record of 35-10. Georgia's number 10 with a record of 38-10. Duke's number 11 with a 43-9 record. Arkansas's number 12 with a record of 36-14. Oregon's number 13 with a record of 35-11. Alabama's number 14 with a record of 36-16. Auburn's number 15 with a record of 37-15. LSU's number 16 with a record of 38-13. Florida's number 17 with a record of 34-16. Northwestern's number 18 with a record of 33-10. Wichita State's number 19 with a record of 43-8. Utah's number 20 with a record of 31-13. Baylor's number 21 with a record of 36-15. Virginia Tech's number 22 with a record of 35-17. Texas A&M's number 23 with a record of 32-18. Louisiana's number 24 with a record of 39-13. And Central Arkansas rounds out the top 25 with a record of 36-9. And once again, we got a few different schools that you really wouldn't think of for softball, but got some decent records, which is helping them to move up the rankings and see how it comes and see if they're going to be possibly hosting a super regional.
Oklahoma has 28 shutouts this year. They have 3 players with an ERA of 1.1 or below. That is absolutely amazing. A couple of teams I keep interested in because we have a few local products in the Lynchburg area playing for them. And one of those is
Mhm.
Clemson. And Clemson came up to Liberty about a week or two ago, actually last week, and lost to the Flames. And then they dropped 2 or 3 to Virginia Tech. So Clemson's lost 3 of 4 as they head into the ACC tournament to take on Notre Dame on next Thursday. Clemson's going to have had about 12 days of rest since Virginia Tech. So you've got to hope that Clemson can get that bad taste out of their mouth if you're a Tigers fan to get back on track. Because like you said, I mean, losing 3 of 4 and you don't have that that leeway when you get to the end of the tournament to drop like that. So we'll see what Clemson does, ranked number 7 right now, but you know, the two teams that stick out to me that are always in the top half are Oklahoma and UCLA. And the Bruins have 19 shutouts out of 52 games.
Yeah, one team I'm not seeing on here that has also been a mainstay at times is Arizona.
Yep.
So
Yep,
we'll have to wait and
even vote in the top 25, but you do have some new teams in there. And, you know, I mean, a lot of people probably don't think about Duke as a softball school. Duke's ranked number 11 right now at
Mhm.
20-9. So, you know, again, this is where I really say check out your college sports network, your, you know, where you might not see softball or baseball or lacrosse or whatever on a, you know, ESPN, but you might have to go to the ESPN News or, you know, the CBS Sportsnet, not your main network, but go to their cable network because, hey, you're going to get some good college sports. And guess what, Alan? College sports is coming to an end for about 2 or 3 months here.
Yep. It's true. I mean, that's why I want to make sure that we get to talk about the important sports that sometimes you won't always hear a lot of people talk about. I want to make sure we bring them up and we can give them the coverage that they deserve as well. And for softball, Florida State actually this last weekend they held off Florida and swept the season series. So congratulations to the Seminoles.
Yep, Seminoles are hanging it right there at number 3 right now. You know, I mean, when you look at the ACC, I count 4 teams in the top 25. So it should be a very interesting tournament when the ACC gets that tournament underway next week.
Yep, I'm ready to see that and just see how it progresses from there. Now, one thing I do want to bring up we're gonna switch gears and go into college baseball. First of all, thoughts and prayers for Matthew Delaney for Texas A&M Turkana. He was the one who was struck by a stray bullet while he was on the field in the bullpen. He is still in ICU because of partial paralysis of his left leg, among other serious injuries. He was standing by the bullpen during a game against the University of Houston Victoria when he was shot in the chest, and I believe they did cancel that game after that happened for obvious reasons. And according to his mother, he is where he's supposed to be doing what he's supposed to be doing, so they cannot take out the bullet yet because it's near his spine. He's suffered 2 broken vertebrae. So he is he's starting to be able to move his leg a little bit and he can feel it. He also had a collapsed lung, so that's something you never imagine hearing or just having to experience that. So just think about when someone's trying to play a game or even watch the game and then all of a sudden this happens because of a shootout that was in the park next to where they were. It's almost unthinkable to me.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, I mean, extremely sad, and you know, not to get let's take life, you know, not take life for granted type area, but you don't
Mhm.
want to take life for granted in that way, especially when there's so much exciting college baseball coming down the stretch. But
Mhm.
like you said, Alan, a lot of things are much more important than a score tally at the end of a game.
Exactly. Just because I believe this is extremely important, and I want to make sure that we definitely hit all the rankings for the different schools. But when you have something that is like this and just seeing how it is, it's something that we need to bring to light. Just like
Yep.
how when there have been other circumstances that have happened this year, instead of just kind of not talking about them, I feel that talking about them for a few minutes is more important because they deserve to have. I mean, it is there to be talked about.
And Alan, you do a great job of hosting the podcast and not only bringing to light, the games, but what's going on off the field. Because, like you said, there is a lot of stuff out there that is super important to talk about. And I'm really grateful that you bring up these things to let everybody know who may not get deep into the papers everything that's going on.
I mean, thank you. I appreciate that. But the thing is, that's why for me, when I do, when I look for the show so that we can do this, I always try to make sure that even though my main focus is talk about the different teams and the different rankings so that we can prep for how it's going to go for the rest of the year. But if there's something that's going to be very important, I want to make sure that we are able to talk about it and give it a voice that sometimes you may not hear. So
Right.
it's always a good thing. But while we're talking about that, Bob, why don't we hit the top 25 for baseball? We have LSU at number 1 at 35-8. Wake Forest is number 2, 37-6. South Carolina's number 3 with a record of 35-8. Florida's number 4 with a record of 35-10. Vanderbilt's number 5 with a record of 32-11. Arkansas is number 6 with a record of 33-11. Stanford's number 7 with a record of 28-13. Coastal Carolina's number 8 with a record of 28-14. UConn's number 9 with a record of 32-11. Duke's number 10 with a record of 31-13. Miami's number 11 with a record of 28-16. West Virginia's number 12 with a record of 33-11. Campbell's number 13 with a record of 31-10. East Carolina's number 14 with a record of 31-13. Oregon State's number 15 with a record of 30-13. Dallas Baptist is number 16 with a record of 34-10. Oregon's number 17 with a record of 30-13. Tennessee's number 18 with a record of 30-14. Boston College is number 19 with a record of 29-14. Arizona State's number 20 with a record of 29-15. UVA's number 21 with a record of 35-11. University of Texas San Antonio's number 22 with a record of 33-11. Maryland's number 23 with a record of 30-15. Cal State Fullerton's number 24 with a record of 26-13. And Northeastern rounds out the top 25 with a record of 35-7.
Real quick, two things that really hop out to me in the rankings is 5 of your top 6 schools are from the SEC. And that just shows the dominance that the Southeastern Conference has had over the years. I mean, I think a lot of people think about Vanderbilt and South Carolina. But I mean, keep in mind, LSU, number 1 in the country. And LSU has had some good baseball teams in the past as well. Florida's a tough place to go to. Arkansas is there too. But how about the Duke Blue Devils? And I'm not going to say this as a Duke fan, which I know you will accuse me of, but Duke jumped all the way from 20 to 10 in this week's ranking. So definitely a big jump for them. And the bottom 3 changed as Maryland, Cal State Fullerton, and Northeastern, not Northwestern, but Northeastern, all get in the top 25. And that super regional is going to be, or the regionals are going to be fun. The regional is basically a pool play of 4, then it goes to a super regional, which is the best out of 3. Then the teams that win the super regional, if I'm not mistaken, the super regional teams either go straight to the College World Series. I can't remember if there's another round or not.
What it is, I believe that once you win in the Super Regional, you do make it to the College World Series. Because then it becomes a double elimination there as well.
And I don't know how many people you run into, Alan, where you're like, what's on your bucket list of sports items? I mean, I do it all every day, But anyway, the thing about it is a lot of people will say the College World Series is on my bucket list of an event to attend. Just out of curiosity, what college sporting event would be on your bucket list to attend?
For me, I would like to go to Ohio State, Michigan one time. That's what I'm really looking forward to for football.
Of course you would. I would have loved to have gone to the ACC tournament. when it was smaller, like 8 or 9 teams, and going to the
Mm-hmm.
whole. I did get to go to the opening round this past year in Greensboro. It was a super fun experience, but when you've got a one-win team in Louisville, you can only get so excited. I probably wouldn't mind going to the College World Series. I actually have been to a super regional. I've been to a lot of college football games, but I can't argue with your pick of Ohio State and Michigan because that would be at the top of anybody's list.
Well, I mean, because I am a diehard fan, and one thing that I've been able to kind of instill in my daughter is a love for sports. So whenever I let her get on and talk with her sister, she will look up the Capitals, the Nationals, the Orioles, the Wizards. She'll check out all the local teams to see how they're doing. And then she'll tell me if it's good or bad.
Right? I've been
So,
seeing a
I
lot of
mean,
love of game shows, but I haven't been able to hit a love of sports with it.
well, I mean, I got lucky. I'll put it like that.
It's
So, you know what?
I think as a parent, some parents live vicariously through their children, but I think for guys like you and me, let's let our children enjoy what they want to enjoy. We're not going to discourage them, but if somebody wants to play sports, I think too the thing that you need to let them know is playing sports. It is a super commitment, especially if you want to be in that area one day to where you're going to be a college athlete because it's not, you know, I've had this talk with several people. A lot of people
Hmm.
like to specialize, but there's almost dedication to being that one sport athlete.
That's true. I mean, when I was growing up, some of the books I would read were about Chip Hilton and how he would be playing football, basketball, and baseball. So watching different people, how they've been able to be successful playing multiple sports,
So,
it's something that's definitely been impressive and I have appreciated. And actually, I just thought of one last thing. Unfortunately, we found out today that a former track star passed away, a former U.S. Olympian. Not sure if you heard about that today or not.
I did 30, 32, I believe.
Yes.
Way too young.
Yeah, Tori Bowie. And so it's a shame that we just found out about that. I mean, we don't know what happened and there's no need that and I'm not going to speculate, but for someone who was able to be successful in college and then go to the Olympics and win a gold medal besides two other medals, and then having something happen like that, so whatever happened, you just feel for her and her family. And
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. I don't know what else I could say because you said it so well.
like I said, thoughts and prayers for her family and also thoughts and prayers for the player for Texas A&M Tarkana, just that his recovery keeps going well. And UVA, I did want to make sure to mention that for their spring game, the football player who had been shot, he was able to play in their spring game, so that was a welcome sight to see. And congratulations that he was able to get on the field, even though he still has a lot that he needs to work through and just keep pushing through the best way that he can.
Yeah, I mean, for any of these guys that have had, life-altering events, or maybe what could have been a life-ending event, I
Mhm.
think the DB with the Buffalo Bills as well. I mean, you just gotta, really just be thankful that they're still here with us. Whether
Mhm.
whether they play another down or not, to me, means absolutely nothing. But as long as they're here to enjoy the down and enjoy, the talk, that's the main thing.
exactly. And yeah, you're definitely right about DeMar Hamlin. The one person that comes to mind even before DeMar Hamlin was Ryan Shazier when he
Mhm.
got hurt while playing for the Steelers, and he's able to walk and he's able to keep living his life even though he'll never play football again. But in the grand scheme of things, he's won.
Yeah,
It's like DeMar Hamlin's won, and any other player or person who's gone through things and they're still here, they've won.
I mean, that's a great point. Eric LeGrand as well.
Hmm.
Is like
Former Rutgers player. Yep.
yeah, there's a lot of things that I look at, and one of the first incidents I remember from my sporting life. I think I was about 9, and it was the West Coast Conference tournament, and Loyola Marymount was super good, and there was an alley oop to Hank Gathers, and Hank Gathers clapped and unfortunately passed away on the court. I mean, it it really humbles you because at that point it becomes where it's not about the game, it's about the guys. Now, Loyola Marymount kind of went on to a storybook after that because they went all the way, I believe, to the Elite Eight before falling, maybe even the Final Four. I can't remember, but they dedicated that to Hank. Bo Kimball, his best friend, shot free throws left-handed in honor of
Hmm.
Hank Gathers. So, you know, sports is so good because at a lower level, if you can enjoy the purity of sports, whether it be at college or below, it's such a great, uniter, a fun activity for us. It helps us to escape from reality. But it's really a shame when people just ruin the purity of it by, complaining or, I mean, it's weird because there's so many debates about sports, and I love debates and I love arguments, but I like to keep it at a debate and an argument. And I know you're a big fan of this, Alan, too. Like, we can debate or argue or something, but at the end,
Hmm.
let's laugh or do whatever. And unfortunately, some people just can't turn off that switch.
Hmm. No, I do understand about that. And that's why no matter what, the goal is you and me are always going to have a discussion. And some people are going to appreciate it, some people are going to not be as happy about it. But the thing is, as long as we try to make sure that when we have our discussions, we hit all the main points about it, everyone's welcome to their opinions. And as long as we make sure to give you the as much information as we can, you can disagree with us as much as you want, but as long as you feel like you've been informed about it, we've done all we can do, which not everyone can say that when it comes to certain things when you're trying to talk about sports.
And I'll be happy to debate or argue with anyone, but I'm not going to my big thing that I like to say is I'm not going to throw fists with somebody over any type of argument because when we get heated or when we get, loud or physical, all the points are gone. But I just look forward to watching these college tournaments with such you know I just want to be a fan because I mean I don't really have
Hmm.
a team in the spring sports that I, kind of live or die with, but I
Hmm.
just want to enjoy the game.
That's true. That's true. I mean, one thing that we'll definitely get into next week is the NCAA golf tournament's getting ready to start as well. I was trying to wait on that till next week just because I want to make sure that we'll have either better information for the teams and a few of the different players that we can talk about as well. Because by then we'll have that, and for lacrosse, we should have some of the brackets almost ready as well. So that way we can make a few picks ourselves, see where that goes, and then I believe we're going to start to see like the different locations for the different tournaments for men and women's softball, so we can start making a few predictions carefully and just seeing where it goes.
Alan, it is always a blast to talk sports with you on a Wednesday night.
Hey, Bob, I appreciate it as well. And although we both agree that trying to find us outside of this show isn't always the best idea, how would we get a hold of you, sir?
You can put two cans together and yell. I recommend you don't do that. You can always, if you can find my number, good for you. Twitter, the Sports Buffet, Facebook, the Sports Buffet Podcast, YouTube, the Sports Buffet. I've been putting some old stuff up there too, just because a lot of my stuff is now more current. But it's funny, Alan. Sometimes when I listen to my old stuff, I cringe because I'm like, gosh, how young were you? And, how much worse were you then? But I feel like if I want to cringe, then I should let other people cringe too.
Yep, no, I've done that myself when I used to do college radio a little bit when you had met me, so I definitely know what you're talking about there. For me, if you were gonna try to find me, you'd find me on Alan F. West at Twitter. Someday I'm gonna change. I'm gonna post on there. It's gonna be our running joke for a while, Bob. And then you have me on Instagram at allen.west.46. But sir, I think that about wraps up for the day, unless there's something else you can think of.
I feel like some days the question is going to be what happens first? One of our daughters getting married or Alan posts on Twitter?
Well, let's hope we don't get that far ahead. Well, let's not go that far. But if you were gonna find the Sportscast, you could look us up on Twitter at the Sportscast1, or you could go to our website, sportscast.net. This has been the Top 25 Rundown. My name is Alan West. That is Bob